Of course, in my own studies and my own activities over the past, well, my whole life, there's always been the artistic side, the musical side, and the more, math, science, technology side. And I think those two parts of my life have fed each other.
Christopher Taylor came to us and he had a really interesting project about a new piano he wanted to make. The basic idea is that he wanted to create a double-decker piano. And he based the model off of a Steinway that was double-decker. It had two sets of keys, one directly in front and slightly below the other. He also wanted to have it electrically control two stereo pianos.
On the new instrument then, by playing a note here, it'll send a signal over to one of the subsidiary instruments, and by playing a note here, it'll send the signal over to the other subsidiary instrument. So, I mean, the sound will be a little different. You'll get this sort of stereo effect.
You know, with that kind of setup, you can play a duet by yourself, basically. And it'll sound like it's coming from two distinct piano players. So the technical problems involved with that the big one's delay. So when I strike a key on the dummy piano, we need to limit the time delay between the striking of the key and the output of sound on the stereo piano as much as possible. Otherwise, you're gonna not play in time, right? Especially if the timing delay is different for the two pianos.
But what it is going to have is it's going to have digital sensors that are going to watch what the pianist is doing, which keys from which keyboard are being pressed. In order to make it feel normal, I'm going to have, for each keyboard, I'm going to have a complete set of hammers. So while this instrument has 88 hammers, my console will have 176 hammers. I can't resist just having a look, seeing what it's doing. Yeah, look. Looks like it's basically doing what it's supposed to. All right. Here it is, the result of several months of labor here. This is an action model. It's illustrating as closely as possible what the final instrument will be like. The main difference is simply that it's, much shorter in this direction, only 6 keys wide as opposed to 88, which is what we're ultimately shooting for. Now the hammers, of course, are just dummies. They're there to make it feel like a normal experience for the pianist. In some regards, that simplified my design because they don't actually have to make any music. They don't have to hit strings. So there will be no strings in this console, and it can end here. It doesn't have to extend way back there the way a grand piano does. And these hammers here are controlled by the lower keyboard. These hammers are controlled by the upper keyboard. The capstan here, the head is designed to look like a normal capstan head, and so it also has the standard holes in it, so you can use a standard capstan adjusting screw for it. For the upper capstans, I came up with this design where the capstan actually penetrates all the way through the key. So to adjust it, you reach in with your tool from behind and you insert it into these holes here and spin the whole thing. And then the capstan heads here don't actually have the holes. They don't need them, but they transmit the message up to the whippen in the standard way. So this is the lower action bracket, which had to be specially designed because it doesn't have a front foot, in as much as there was no room for the front foot given the constraints of the upper keyboard. This is the lower back check, which then starts at the back end of the lower key, heads up between a couple of rails, so the positioning is very critical, and then up through another hole in the upper key, and then up to the back check head, which is actually built from a damper block glued to a standard back check. So this represents the electronic side of what I've been doing, and is a little mock-up showing the basics of how the communication from the console over to the subsidiary instruments is going to work. On the key that the pianist plays then is a sensing mechanism, and that is located here at the back of the key. And basically when I play the key, there's a little plastic strip here that moves up as it happens when I push down, and the information is getting communicated across some wires here over to the vicinity of the second key. Then in the vicinity of the second key, the most important thing is the solenoid here, which actually plays this key in response to the stream of data that's coming over from the source key. The result then is that when you play this key, when this key goes down and this strip moves up, the exact same thing happens over here, and I release, and so there's still some work I have to do on refining my programs, but the basic electronics hardware seems to be working correctly, and the response really is instantaneous, which is something that's not necessarily the case with the existing disc clavier technology. This model does not include any of the electronics, any of the sensors, but I've certainly thought about how they will ultimately be mounted. So for the upper keyboard, the sensors can be back here at the back end of the keys. There's plenty of room here to put the electronics in. For the lower keyboard, I'm envisioning having the sensors actually below the keys. So they'll be mounted in a little box here, hanging down, hopefully not interfering with the pianist's knees. There'll be a little distance back between these rails. With my new invention, if it works, it'll be able to do everything that the existing double manual instrument does, and then a lot more in addition. It's something that, you know, keeps the frontiers of classical music moving forward, and yet at the same time is not sort of a radical divorce from the sounds that we've grown up with and come to love.